Good morning, students. Today we would be revising two topics under public international law. One is extradition and the other one is asylum. So we'll first start with extradition. So when we talk about extradition, you know that extradition is when we have to deliver a person who's accused of some crime to a jurisdiction of another sovereign. So that is known as extradition. Now, when we talk about extradition, so it is an act where one jurisdiction delivers a person accused or convicted of committing a crime in another jurisdiction over their law enforcement. So, through extradition process, one sovereign jurisdiction typically makes a formal request to another sovereign jurisdiction, to deliver the person accused to to its jurisdiction where it may be punished. So, it is a cooperative law enforcement between the two jurisdictions, and it depends on the arrangement made between them. Also, it involves a physical transfer of the custody of a person being extradited to the legal authority of the requesting jurisdiction. So if the fugitive is found within the territory of the requested state, then the requested state may arrest the fugitive and subject him or her to extradition process. So this extradition process to which fugitive will be subject are dependent on the law and practice of the requested state. So, extradition is basically regulated between two countries by way of treaties. So there would be, for example, if the country want to extradite someone from the country from another jurisdiction, then both the countries must have an extradition treaty between them. So where extradition is compelled by law, such as among subnational jurisdiction, the concept may be generally known as rendition. So this is, and when we talk about extradition treaty, so when we are talking about the history of international law, there also I told you that in ancient mechanism, also dating back to the 13th century BC, when an Egyptian king negotiated an extradition treaty with another king. So you know that if we talk about treaty of extradition, then treaty of extradition way back to 13th century BC. Now, if we come to before coming to extradition, definition of extradition as given by Stark and Grotius, extradition in international law is the process by which one state, upon the request of another, effect the return of a person for trial for a crime punishable by the law of requesting state, and not only extradite, but also after extraditing, punish the same person for the act which he has committed, for the unlawful act that he has committed. So and also if we talk about extradition, then on the basis of principle of territoriality of crime, which means that the criminal should be punished where he has committed the crime. He should be punished in the territory where he has committed the crime. So according to the principle of territoriality of criminal law, state do not apply the penal law to the act committed outside their boundary except in protection of special interest, and that special interest would be special national interest. So in helping to suppress crime, however, state generally have been willing to cooperate in bringing fugitive to justice. And if we talk about the first act providing for extradition was adopted in 1833 by Belgium, which also passed the first law on right to asylum. Now, coming to the definition given by Stark and Grotius. So, the term extradition denotes the process whereby, under the treaty or upon the basis of reciprocity, one state surrenders to another state at its request a person accused or convicted of a criminal offense committed against the law of the requesting state. Such requesting state is competent to try the alleged offender. You know what is written here, because I've already explained it to you, that fugitive or the criminal has to be transferred from jurisdiction of one state to the jurisdiction of another state, and where he has committed the crime, who would be transferred to that jurisdiction, and who would be convicting the criminal. Then Grotius also said that it is the duty of each state to punish the criminal or return them to the state where they have committed the crime. Again, we are talking about the principle of territoriality of crime, that the crime should be punished in the territory where it was committed. So from these definition, we can conclude that the process of extradition, the, or by the process of extradition, the offender can be punished easily. Either they can run to any other country just to save themselves, as it is the duty of each state to punish the criminal. Therefore, various laws and treaties are made or are being formed for dealing with such cases and situations easily. Or otherwise, what happens is a person commits crime in one territory and then moves on to another territory. He would not be punished there. So, if there was no provision for extradition, then he would be left, unpunished, and justice would have never been served. So the purpose of extradition is to prevent crime and to punish the criminal who have escaped from their punishment and started to reside in another country. Also, for that, international cooperation is most essential in case of extradition, because there is hardly a country which has an extradition treaty with all the countries of the world. So now, if we talk about extradition treaty, that for extradition, the two countries should have an extradition treaty with each other. Now, it's not possible. That, for example, if you talk about India, it is not possible for India to have extradition treaty with all the countries of the world. So it is better that even if there is no treaty, we can, on basis of mutual cooperation, extradite the person. Then before we move to asylum, I would just like to tell you that we have certain restriction on surrender under Indian law. And Indian law is governed by Extradition Act of 1962 and Section 31 of that particular act, that is Section 31 of Extradition Act 1962, provides certain restriction on surrender of fugitive criminal, and the restriction are on any offense of political nature, for example sedition, or prosecution for offense being time barred. If it is time barred, then he would not be extradited. Or extradition treaty or provision by law of foreign state that fugitive shall not be tried or detained in any offense committed prior to his surrender or return. And last is after expiration of 50 days after being committed to prison. So if a fugitive criminal is not being surrendered or returned until the expiry of 15 days from the date of his being unserving to prison by magistrate, then he would not be extradited. So we will not be extraditing political criminal. Then if we talk about rule of speciality, it says that an accused, if is extradited for the particular purpose, then he would be, for a particular offense, then he would be punished only for that offense and no other offense. So rule of speciality also applies to extradition, which says that a person would be liable for punishment only for the offense for which he is extradited and for no other offense. Double criminality is also very important. Why? Because the crime for which request is made by the country for extradition, that must also be a crime in the country from where the accused is being extradited. So if India is extraditing someone or for example some other country is extraditing a person for adultery, then that crime should also be an offense in India. So adultery is not a crime in India, then it would not be extradited. So crime, that offense should be or that act should be an offense in both the country. So these are certain, and then the formalities. The last is the formality. So for the purpose of extradition of a person, prescribed formality must be fulfilled between both the countries. So all these things, if I talk about, should be taken into account before we extradite the person. Again, I'm repeating: non-extradition of political criminal, rule of speciality, double criminality, and formalities. These are the certain restrictions on surrender of fugitive criminals to the jurisdiction of another state. Now, student, the next very important topic is asylum. Now, asylum, is granted to a state, to a foreign citizen against his own state. The biggest example of asylum, as I have told you time and again, is we have given extra asylum to Dalai Lama. So, and going against China. So, asylum in international law is the protection granted by a state to a foreign citizen against his own national. Also, the person for whom asylum is established has no legal right to demand it, and the sheltering state has no obligation to grant it. So, there is no right of a person to seek asylum. Also, there is no obligation on the state to whom asylum is seek to actually grant it. They may or they may not grant it. It is purely the decision of the sovereign. Now, Stark has defined, asylum, and according to it, it involves two elements. Number one is shelter, and number two is active protection. So, shelter, should be given, and which is more than, something more than merely a temporary refugee, and a degree of active protection on the part of the authorities in control of territory of asylum. So asylum, if we talk about, so asylum is a protection which a state grants on its territory or in some other place under the control of certain its organ to a person who comes to seek it. So if a person comes to seek, asylum, then the state, may or may not grant it, but depending upon the situation and depending what the, nationality of the person, and there are a lot of, other political things also that is kept into mind before we grant asylum to a person. So the term asylum is used to describe a number of legal notions: the grant of the status of admission into their territory of refugees, the protection of refugees against return to a country in respect of which they fear persecution, and non-extradition of political offenders. So from all this discussion regarding asylum, so we see that everyone has right to seek and enjoy in other country asylum from persecution, which was laid down by Article 14 of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And it also says that the right of asylum falls into three basic categories: territorial, extraterritorial, and neutral. So when we talk about extraterritorial asylum, it refers to asylum granted in embassies, legislation, consulates, warship, and merchant vessel in foreign country, and thus granted within the territory of the from which territory of the state from which protection is sought. Extraterritorial means granted in embassies, legislation, consulate, generally known as diplomatic asylum, which are often for, often occasion for dispute. So see, we will be discussing all of it in detail, but I'm just laying down a simple, uh, you know, what is, simple, in simple word, I'm just telling you what is asylum, what are the different kinds of asylum. Once it is totally depends on the sovereign whether to grant it or not. Then if we have Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which say that everyone has right to seek and enjoy asylum in other country. So it is the right of a state to grant asylum to an individual, but it is not the right of the individual to grant of an individual to be granted asylum by a state. And this is the perspective which is reflected by Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which though under Article 14 recognizes the right to seek and enjoy in other country asylum from persecution, does not explicitly provides a right of asylum. Then what are the basis of giving asylum? So a state has a right to grant asylum to a principal, to a person on the principle that it has sovereign right to control over individual found on its territory. So the right of territorial asylum has been conferred to a state on the basis of its sovereignty over the territory. Now you know that every state is sovereign and it enjoys territorial sovereignty, or what we say as internal sovereignty. Now it has right with respect to every person who is within its boundary. So if a person is found within its territory, that means it is regarding its state enjoys internal sovereignty over it. That state would decide what to be done with that person, so they may or may not grant asylum. So the right is exclusive in the sense that other states are excluded to exercise the jurisdiction on the same territory. Then there are certain reasons for granting asylum, which are: number one, it is granted to save a person from jurisdiction of local authorities on the ground that he will not get fair trial, or on humanitarian grounds, or it may also be granted national security, on the basis of national security. The offender who may be a rebel today may become a ruler in future date. So these are certain reasons why we grant asylum. But state always adopt a cautious approach before doing so, that is before granting asylum, because it normally affects the friendly relation between two countries. For example, as I again told you, India granted asylum to Dalai Lama and other Tibetans. It resulted in most strained relationship between India and China. So And in this case also, if you talk about the reason for granting asylum was that Dalai Lama and his followers were found in the territorial sovereignty by India. Now, talking about the kinds of asylum, now territorial asylum, as I told you in a previous slide also, is granted by a state on its territory. Which is because state exercises territorial sovereignty over all person on its territory, which is not under legal obligation to grant asylum to fugitive. Now, the grant of asylum is a part of which it can, part of which cannot be exercised in respect of international crime, including genocide. So, some of the examples of territorial asylum, one would be Dalai Lama, and his followers were granted asylum by government of India. Then, if you remember, Tiger Menon, wanted in Bombay, bomb blast case, granted asylum by Pakistan. Then Taslima Nasreen, a Bangladeshi writer, for her novel Lajja, granted asylum in Sweden. Salman Rushdie, for his controversial novel, he was granted asylum by Great Britain. How can you forget Dawood Ibrahim? Dawood Ibrahim, who's a mafia don, is given asylum by Dubai government. So all these, some are prominent examples, and there are many others, like Baby Doc, who's been given asylum by France. So there are many example of the territorial asylum. Then when we come to extraterritorial asylum, active protection is given outside the territory not belonging to the state granting it. So when an asylum is granted by a place by a state at any place which is outside its territory, it is called extraterritorial asylum, and it usually describes those cases in which a state refuses to surrender a person demanding who is not upon its physical territory but is upon one of its public ship lying in foreign territorial borders or upon on its diplomatic premises within foreign territory. So asylum is given at legation, consular premises, warship, and as embassies and so on and so forth. So these are the two kind of asylum that we usually grant. So this is all about asylum. Then if you still have any this topic, we've already done in detail in class also, we've revised it in class also, and then again today I have done a quick revision of it. Still, if you face any problem with respect to this topic, student, please feel free to contact me either through mail or WhatsApp group or give me a call. Thank you so much.